Men Behaving Badly changed the face of British sitcom in the 90s and showed that face, warts and all. At its peak, 17 million viewers tuned in to watch the boys behaving badly and the girls taking their revenge. Our characters and connections take us through Hairspray ads and Quadrophenia in the 70s, all the way to Bob the Builder in the 90s. And there's the brave new world of laddism along the way.
Can we get out now?
Yeah. There was, a love that was involved between us all in those days as well, but still is, with that kind of the feelings we have for each other. We're really strong, we're really well bonded. We'd found each other and enjoyed each other's company to that extent.
We felt as though we'd been to school together and we sort of left school and we'd all grown up.
I mean, 7 or 8 years we were doing it, and I went through a marriage, Caroline went through a marriage, Neil went through other people's marriages. And of course, a huge support group. Because, I mean, I know it's tiresome hearing endless lovies queue up to say how much they love each other, but we do.
Men Behaving Badly started life over on ITV in 1992, but finally made itself at home on the BBC a couple of years later. An orgy of laddism it may have been, but it was a grandmother who brought it to our screens. Beryl Virtue had never produced a sitcom before, and Simon Nye, then just a banker, had never written one. But it was the title of Nye's first novel that brought the two sitcom virgins together.
There was this book called Men Behaving Badly, which I asked to see because I thought it might be an idea for a film. So I read this book, and it wasn't a film because it kind of wandered a bit, didn't actually end. But I thought that it would make a great comedy series.
Beryl Virtue knew a bit about comedy, having started her career as secretary to Alan Simpson and Ray Galton, creators of Steptoe and Son. She was an agent for Tony Hancock, Spike Milligan and Eric Sykes, before going on to be executive producer on the movie of Up Pompeii and The Who's rock opera Tommy. Her impressive track record was enough to get her in to see the head of entertainment at Thames Television.
Well, this very formidable lady, Beryl Virtue, came to see me, clutching a book. And one of the things I vowed not to do too often was read books. I had enough scripts to read. So she said, would I read it? And I said, yes, and I'll come back to you in 3 months, hoping that would deter her. And of course it didn't, and I had to read it. And it was a kind of disjointed Men Behaving Badly. Obviously, Beryl had given it more thought than I had, because I didn't quite see the potential that she did.
He said, well, I've read the book, and I like the book, but I can't see what you mean. So I said, well, I'll tell you then. And he said, no, you know what you're doing, you do it. So it was a huge compliment, but at the same time I was a bit unnerved, really.
Which isn't surprising. ITV were taking a massive gamble on the untried writer, Simon Nye.
I don't know who I thought wrote sitcoms, but so until my late 20s, I still didn't think that it was kind of for the likes of me to write sitcoms. I suppose I thought, like lots of people, I thought the actors sort of got together and made it up in a corner and then rehearsed it, and which is stupid, let's face it. So it took Beryl Virtue, the producer of Men Behaving Badly, to gently take me by the hand and tell me that I could maybe try and turn it into TV.
Just in case the actors did have to make it up, Beryl Virtue decided that a big star was needed as insurance. But back in 1992, Neil Morrissey wasn't the man Beryl was looking for. The big name she wanted to sprinkle his stardust over her first ever sitcom was the brightest new talent on the box.
I knew Harry Enfield well, and I asked him if he would like to star in this, because he was very well known then. And people were excited by him, and he'd never done a sitcom before.
Harry Enfield may not have done sitcom before, but he was hot comedy property. After lending his voice to Spitting Image, he played Stavros, the nation's favourite kebab shop owner, then created the loathsome Loads Money. It couldn't be long before he got a show of his own, and sure enough, Harry Enfield's television programme and Harry Enfield and Chums would go on to be a breeding ground for the best of British comedy in the 90s.
Oh, Tim, you daft bugger, forget the crapola cooking. Totty's not impressed with all that new man bollocks. The way to Totty's heart is through your wallet.
Oh, that's the trouble. I'm a bit stony at the moment since I've lost my job at Sotheby's. A bit of a crossed line during a telephone auction. Flogged a Renoir to a minicab firm for £11.
The way that Martin Clunes came to my notice was through Harry Enfield, actually.
I know Martin Clunes took a bit of persuading because I think he'd done enough sitcoms to last him and he just couldn't bear doing another one. But we twisted his arm.
So Martin Clunes came in courtesy of Harry Enfield, but his first ever television appearance was in an episode of a popular science fiction series of the day. Which might easily have been called Wardrobe and Makeup Department behaving appallingly.
Mother, do you expect me to allow those who plot my death to go free?
Your death?
Isn't it obvious?
Clunes had also shown his comedy assets playing alongside Maureen Lipman in his sitcom debut, all at number 20.
But then there's my ears. Monica said they were funny.
Did she? What? Funny ha-ha or funny peculiar?
One of each, she said.
But Clunes and those funny ears would really hit the big time playing bad lad Gary Strang.
It was just sort of, you know, a bunch of show-offs getting together to show off to one another. I mean, it's a very creative arena.
Well, don't overdo it, love.
Caroline Quentin was not a known name, but was funny again. And she knew Martin. She knew Martin quite well.
Oh, she was a friend of a friend years ago, long before Men Behaving Badly or any of that. And went to see her in a play, Our Country's Good. I used to go, and she flashed her bush in it. That's a tired old thing. She's been flashing it a lot in the British theatre. She got it out in another play I saw as well.
Caroline Quentin's journey to Gary Strang's flat began with tiny steps. In 1983, she was longing for love in Party Party and went on to make her sitcom debut in the forgotten BBC series Don't Tell Father. But the time she spent hanging out with the elite of Britain's early 90s alternative comedy set gave Quentin the push she needed.
Now then, what I'm going to do now is gently lift you onto the bed. Now, you might experience a slight twinge.
I auditioned for it in the same way that I auditioned for a million other sitcoms or many other drama series. I mean, it was just another interview for me, and I got a recall, and then I got another recall, and then I got offered the part. And the first series with Harry Enfield and everything.
With Clunes, Enfield and Quentin on board, all that remained was the casting of Deborah, the fantasy girl next door.
Leslie Ash, who was very much a sort of icon for of the time, for that kind of very pretty girl next door, and I had her in mind. I think when I wrote the novel, I really sort of thought of her as that part.
I loved Simon because he just really cared about everything. He was always there most of the time during the rehearsals, and Beryl too. Beryl was always there with script in hand. You really felt like you were part of someone's baby.
Leslie Ash bubbled onto our screens playing the cutie opposite the country's favourite fairy, and was still in Adland in 1978 as the girl with the flyaway hair. Is she? Isn't she? No, she can't be wearing Harmony hairspray. Can she? And then everyone noticed her pout when she played the Thinking Mod's Crumpet in Quadrophenia. After appearing in The Two Ronnies, Leslie Ash went on to play it straight as computer whiz Fred Smith in the all-girl, all-action series Cat's Eyes. Her return to intentional comedy came in 1992 as Deborah, the sexy new neighbour to the boys, who were suddenly behaving better.
Hi, I'm Deborah. I bought the flat upstairs.
Oh, hello, Gary. Flat downstairs.
No.
Oh, this is Dorothy. She's a nurse.
Yeah, have some wine. Cheers.
So, will you be living in a sharing situation?
No.
Oh.
Do you all live in this flat?
No. She lives with her mother miles away.
Have you got anyone helping you move in?
Yeah, a friend of mine's got a van. He's going to give me a hand. I'm afraid there'll be a bit of humping upstairs.
Leslie, of course, was Simon's fantasy casting for the gorgeous girl upstairs. She would be every guy's fantasy, like, oh my God, have you seen us move to upstairs? Right, let's go and meet her. Let's get her down here under any pretext. Let's hope we can get into her knickers.
Let's get together sometime.
For a meal or just for me?
She fancies me.
She fancies me.
Men Behaving Badly got off to a flying start. Harry Enfield and the team attracted big audiences. Beryl Virtue's instincts were proved right, and ITV uncrossed its collective fingers. But behind the scenes, something had started to smell a bit off, and it wasn't coming from the fridge.
I knew Harry wasn't very happy, and he had a lot of headaches during the first series, and I thought, I can't stand working with somebody who's really not very happy.
I never did tell anybody that he'd said he'd only do one series. So when it got picked up for a second series, he said he wouldn't do it, and there was shock horror everywhere and surprise, but not from me, because I knew that.
With Harry Enfield wanting to hand in his notice, the show's future was plunged into doubt. Beryl Virtue had to find someone new to pay the rent and keep the show on the screens. But as ever, she had a plan.
You had to sort of stop them all panicking, saying, well, we can't do it then. And I said, well, we could, because Harry Enfield played the lodger, and the lodger could leave, and a new lodger could arrive.
With Enfield packed up and gone, the team found a new lodger who could keep them on the road.
Hi.
Afternoon.
I was doing Boone at the time, and I was an old drinking pal of Martin Clune's. He used to live in Tufnell Park, and I was a Crouch Ender. And we had mutual friends, and we became friends. And a couple of years later, he recommended me, because Harry didn't want to do it anymore. And Martin recommended me for it. So I went down and met Beryl, had a bit of lunch, and got it.
Is this the flat with the room to let?
Yes, who are you?
Tony.
Tony? You should have come last week.
Yeah, I lost a bit of paper with the address on it.
Oh, well, come on.
I don't know what happened, you know.
So it was pretty straightforward. He walked in, he had his long hair.
Hi.
All the girls thought he was gorgeous. And immediately you had an extra element in the show, in that he was quite fanciable. And we were able to make him successful with women, in contrast to Martin's character, who was not very successful with women.
You missed your last bus home?
I think I have, actually.
Is the door locked?
Yes.
It was very funny when Neil started, because I'd known Neil from before and I knew Caroline before, but Neil and Caroline hadn't met before. And when Neil first started, Caroline was giving her usual sort of jip, and in Neil she found someone who wasn't afraid to bark back, and it was actually quite. There was no bad air, but you could see her going, "Whoa!" It's because usually you just sort of, "Oh yeah, okay," but not with Neil, because it's mixed with a kind of flirtation as well, which is a curious mixture, but it gives her a license to print money. And so off she was going, and Neil, you'll have to bleep this, but Neil just went, "You're asking for a and she was like, "Oh, God, so I am."
With a new cast and a new start, the team were ready to let rip. And it seemed nothing would stop Men Behaving Badly becoming a huge hit.
We all felt